You're listening to COB, Conversations on the Business of Brands, with Sudeep Chawla and Sharavana Raghavan.
We're about, 15 episodes in, Sudeep?
Yes.
And we're already repeating topics? Really?
Who said we are repeating topics, Sharan?
Measure what you treasure was one of your famous topics from the previous episodes.
Yes, it was.
And we're doing that again today?
No, we're taking it forward. At that point, I said measure whatever you treasure. Now I'm taking it forward and telling everybody what to measure and how to measure.
So basically telling them what the treasure is.
No, so treasure they would have to discover on their own.
Okay.
Whatever they think is treasure, there are a few ways of measuring it. I'm telling them how to measure it.
Okay.
Because I had made a point at that point in time that even if you don't have big budgets, big agencies, etc., anybody can and everybody can measure it qualitatively or quantitatively. I will focus more on quantitative today and give them some sort of a framework, a simple one, so that all of them can logically think about what they treasure and therefore what should they be measuring.
Okay, where do we start?
When we spoke about measuring whatever you treasure, all business owners or brand owners treasure the sales of their brands. All of them want to increase sales. To make sure that they start on their journey of measuring, it is important that all of them decide what is the route to sales for them. And when I say route to sales, Sharan, the idea is to think about what kind of marketing campaign you are going to trigger and how is it going to lead the consumer to buy or try your product.
Okay.
If you are clear about that, that route is something that will tell you what to measure and then how to analyze it.
But isn't that the $1 million question in marketing anyway? How do you measure the money spent in marketing? We have this famous saying that says, half the money spent in marketing is wasted, but the trouble is you don't know which half.
Yes.
Are you solving for the global marketing problem with this episode?
I am actually only saying that you don't need to worry about which half is getting wasted. You are spending that money to move the consumer in a certain direction. All you need to be clear about to start with is what is the route to that behavior amongst the consumers. And if you become clearer, then I can tell you a few ways in which you can logically measure whether your brand or your campaign is doing the job that you envisaged it to do or not.
That sounds fair, but how do you propose that we measure? And more importantly, every marketing campaign could be different, right? So what do we measure?
So let me first introduce the framework.
All right.
And then we should take a few examples to see how do campaigns fit in there.
Sure.
Yeah. So my theory is that any campaign that you create has to tick 2 out of these 3 boxes. The first one is salience. Salience is about how well does your consumer remember your brand or your campaign.
Right.
Especially when there is tremendous amount of clutter around it.
Right, the stickiness of it.
The stickiness, yeah. And usually this becomes very, very important when you are launching a new brand or a new variant.
Right.
Yeah, you might remember the Jio Dhan Dhanadhan ads which were pouring out of every orifice. Yeah. Now, the reason Jio had done that and they had taken all the IPL superstars to announce it was because they wanted to announce that there is something called Jio. And hence that is called salience. You're just making yourself known, making yourself memorable, etc. to people. Second box is mind. Yeah, or mind measures as we call them. If you have to define them, these are beliefs or attitudes that you want your consumer to associate with your brand. Or the other way to think about it is this is what do you want the consumer to believe about your brand? It could be fact, it could just be an emotional association. Fact as in this detergent makes the clothes whitest, or an emotion like this drink is meant for adrenaline junkies. Things like that, which might or might not have any fact around them,
Right.
but it's an association which gets built over a period of time or through a series of planned interventions. The third box after salience and mind measure is behavior, where you clearly determine what do you want the consumer to do after they have been exposed to your communication or your brand. Yeah.
What
At
do you
the
want them
very
to think, feel, and do, like we discussed earlier?
correct. The think,
Got it.
feel, do. And think, feel, do, the do is the one which will translate into behavior. Everybody would say, what do you want the consumer to do? Of course, you want the consumer to go and buy. But just before buying, because the consumer has not yet bought, they've just seen your communication. So usually you would want consumer to have an intention. So this is where you measure their intent. So therefore the three boxes are salience, mind measure, behavior. And the theory is that you of course want to create behavior in every consumer. The route to behavior either goes through salience or goes through mind measure. If you as a brand owner, as a business owner, you are clear which route are you willing to take right now at this stage, then it'll be fairly easy for you to determine whether your brand campaign is moving in the right direction or the dollars or the money that you've spent is going in the right direction or not.
Right. That makes sense. But are you sure just three? Are you sure you don't want, say, you want to communicate discount coupons and collect more first party data about their PIN code and how they're willing to click on a lead gen link? And is that not something you want to measure right now?
So you might want to, but the fact is that, see, Sharon, these are all activities.
Right.
These are outcomes of something that you've done. For example, if you're giving a discount code, what you're trying to do possibly is tell the consumer that I'm giving you a great deal. Yeah, and therefore you're driving association with a great deal. Or the discount code could be about creating trials. Yeah, so
Right.
therefore it could be about the behavior side. So these are all, whatever you just said about clicks and discount codes and ad buttons, etc. These are all means. Yeah, but what you have to measure is what are you doing to get to these means. Yeah.
Right. It makes a lot of sense now. Yeah.
When you talk to people, for example, when I speak to any of my friends in startups or any of the people that I interact with, most of them talk in terms of numbers which are CTRs, CPL, CAC, etc. And I'm sure you as well as all our listeners are aware of these terms and many more of such kind. These are the numbers that you regularly deal with.
Right.
Now, these numbers usually are a resultant of what you are doing in your campaign. Yeah, and these are post facto numbers. And then, a lot of the performance marketeers will tell you, let's tinker with something and let's see whether the CAC is going up or going down, whether
Right.
your CPL is going up or going down. Whatever measure we are speaking about, Sharon, today will help you scientifically tinker things.
When you say salience, mind measures, and behavior, wouldn't every campaign want to do all these three anyway?
Any campaign, when launched, would create some amount of salience, some amount of mind measure, and therefore some amount of behavior.
So we're talking about the proportions here?
Yes. So we are saying that, for a campaign at a particular stage, one out of salience or mind measure is more important than the other. For example, I go back to the same example, Jio Dhandhanadan. I don't know what kind of mind measure it created in your head. I'm fairly sure that most of the people didn't even understand what is Jio.
At best, they might have understood it's a broadband, but nothing more than that.
Possibly.
Or even just a phone SIM card.
Maybe. And that too towards the fag end of the commercial, because all you could see in the commercial was cricketers dancing. It was pure salience without any association. Each marketer needs to be clear which out of the two, salience or mind measure, is more critical for their brand at that point in time and critical from a point of view of being able to drive business. Now I will take everybody a bit deeper into the things to measure under each one of these boxes.
Let's go.
Yeah, so in fact, my advice to all our listeners is, if you're there, it'll be better if you take a pen or a pencil and possibly scribble along, so that you are able to follow some of the terminologies being spoken about. Yeah, while concepts might be clear, the terminologies, we will keep referring back to these terminologies later in the later part of the podcast as well. So it'll just help if you jot those down.
Right. And if you're listening to it on any of the main platforms, you can actually download these terms on your show notes also.
Okay, excellent. Let's get into our first box. Our first box is salience. Now, within salience, there are two things that you could possibly talk about. There is the salience of your campaign, and then there is salience of your brand. Campaign is the lead vehicle which people will first get exposed to, and a marketer would hope and pray and plan that the campaign leads to brand salience. So when we talk about campaign salience, at that point in time you are trying to determine two things. Number one, is your campaign memorable? And number two, is it reaching people? As a founder, if you are going and doing this research on your own, I will now try to break it down in that form. So the first thing that we will speak about is executional cut through. In marketing term, we call it as ECT. Suppose you launched a campaign and you're, for example, a denim brand, and you have just launched what you call as responsible denim, which means that your denim uses lesser water to be produced. So therefore you launched a campaign. Now in that campaign you possibly show a particular denim which is trying to save itself from water. Yeah, it constantly shuns water, and towards the end it says because it is a responsible denim. Just let's imagine that creative, as poorly crafted as it may sound, but I'm just crafting it on the go. So if that's the creative, yeah, so therefore your first question to your intended target segment, and you have to go to your intended target segment. Don't go to your friends. You can go to your friends' friends as long as they fall in the same segment. You don't go to your friends because they tend to be biased. You might not read the sample perfectly.
Yeah, they could be biased both ways.
Correct. Number two, if you're doing a quant one, which I'll encourage you to do, to read the data properly, for every segment that you study, you need at least 30 data points. So you need to speak to at least 30 people. Yeah, so for executional cut through, you will go and ask the intended TG, have you seen any denim ad recently? If they say yes, you would say, can you please describe it to me? If the intended person describes, for example, some elements of your ad, that I saw a denim and it was getting exposed to water, but it was shunning water, it was running away from water, then you know your execution has cut through. So your ECT gets a tick. Then you ask them, okay, the creative that you just recall, can you just tell me what brand it was? For example, it was Sharon's denim. So if the guy says it, I think it was Sharon's, then you know your brand has been recalled. So that measure, the first one where you are not asking for the brand, you're just asking for description of the ad, it's called executional cut through. The one where you said what is the brand and the guy recalls is called branded cut through.
Okay.
Yeah, both these are unaided, are spontaneous. Now you will meet a lot of people who might not be able to recall your ad unaided, and don't be shocked with it. You will meet a lot of them. Yeah, for the best of the brands where I worked, the very best had at best double digit or lead single digits, about 7, 9%, 10%, 11%, that kind of a cut through.
As in, out of very percent, it's about single digits out of 100 number of people met. Remembered the execution cut through.
Correct, with the best of the ads.
Wow.
So, in single campaign, done over a period of time, possibly you can take it up to about 16, 18, 20, not more than that.
Right.
Because always be clear, your brand, your life revolves around your brand. Your consumers doesn't. Yeah, they have too many things to contend with in their life, and your brand is one small speck within a big universe that their life is, and hence it is quite possible that they might not remember the name of your brand and the advertising campaign run by it. So it's perfectly okay. Don't be shocked. and don't give them bad looks.
True.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
for all the people that you are not able to get any response on, they might not be able to describe any ad of denim. Therefore, you will not even ask them which brand were they for. You show them what is called as a card, an ad card. So what
Right.
you do is you paste some excerpts of your ad where your brand name is not visible. And then you ask them, have you seen this ad anywhere? If they say yes, then you get a tick on a measure called creative reach, CR. So this is an aided element. And then you ask them, okay, if you've seen this ad, do you remember the brand? If they're able to remember the brand, it is called BCR, which is branded creative reach. So therefore, we spoke about 4 measures, and all these 4 measures were for campaign salience. We spoke about executional cut through, branded cut through, creative reach, branded creative reach. The broad way of understanding this is that if your brand has creative reach, which means that your media has done the job of showing it to people. If you have branded creative reach, which means that your ad has decent amount of brand integration such that people will not miss the brand if they see the ad. And the converse is also true. If your BCR is very, very low, which means that your ad is still being remembered, your brand isn't. So therefore,
Right.
your brand integration is poor.
It could possibly be helping some other brand also at times.
Possibly. Or maybe just helping the category
Yeah.
and none of the brands. Yeah.
But-
So it's a social service campaign then. Then if you have executional cut through, it means your execution is really memorable. People remember it.
Right.
For example, Zuzu might have had a great ECT.
Right.
Yeah. Now an interesting question for all of you, think about it. What would they test Zuzu on from a branded cut through point of view? Was it Vodafone? Was it Vodafone postpaid services, or were they exact services that they were talking about?
Actually, interesting question. Even I can't recall that anymore.
Yeah, so they had some 15 commercials across 2 or 3 IPLs. Each commercial spoke about a very different service. Yeah. So for each ad, they could have tested it for the service that they were advertising. My belief is that at a campaign level, they wanted to show that there are significant number of value-added services that they're providing. So their branded cut through would have been for Vodafone value-added services. Yeah, so therefore, if your campaign is memorable, you will get ECT or executional cut through. And if your brand is well integrated into it, you will get branded cut through. Now, branded cut through is marketeer's nirvana, because people remember your brand unaided, people remember your campaign unaided. So your job is done. You should not ideally abuse your media agency or your creative agency. If your CR is low, abuse your media agency. If your ECT is low, abuse your creative agency. Or, that's a lighter way of saying it. Ideally, you should relook at the brief that you've issued them. There is possibly some problem in your media brief or your creative brief.
No, I'd like to go a little deeper on that. Can you tell me why the media agency is responsible for the creative reach, and the creative agency is responsible for the execution cut through?
Sure. A simple way of understanding this, Sharan, for everybody would be that it is media agency's job to translate your brief into a plan which makes sure that a certain amount of intended target segment gets to see your campaign. Now, at the very least, even if it is a poor campaign, even if it is a poor creative, you expect that people will at least be able to recall it once they are aided with the photographs from the campaign. If you're not seeing any kind of aided recall also, which means that a lot of the people haven't seen your campaign, which means either your campaign, if your media plan is not delivering on your intended TG, or your intended TG itself is wrong, the product or the category is completely irrelevant. Either ways, there is a problem in either your brief or the media execution. Once the media agency has done the job of exposing the creative to people, then the quality of the creative determines its memorability as well as people's ability to recall the brand for which the campaign was executed.
Got it.
If your creative agency has not made a very memorable campaign, or they have not been able to integrate a brand into the campaign, then it's a problem. So that is how you should think about salience. Now this is for all everywhere where you are desperately trying to register your brand or a sub brand or a variant with the consumers. Now a logical consequence of campaign salience is brand salience. That
Right.
whatever you do, it should lead back to your brand. And from a brand salience, it's a very simple thing. You measure three things. They are, almost a logical consequence of each other. The first one is spontaneous brand awareness. Now, within spontaneous brand awareness, a lot of you might have heard this brand called TOMA, this term called TOMA, top of mind awareness. I will explain what is TOMA with this example. So you answer my question. How many brands of denim are you aware of?
Brands of denim. I'd say Levi's. I'd say Lee. Spiker. Flying Machine.
Just hold there.
Okay.
You said Levi's, Lee, Spiker, Flying Machine.
Yeah.
At least four of them you recounted. Yeah. So therefore, for you as a consumer, if you are the only observation set or the consumer set that I have, so Levi's top of mind awareness is 100%.
Got it.
Because that's the first brand that you have recalled. You have Levi's as your TOMA. Now, all the four brands that you recalled, all four of them are part of your Spont brand.
The brands that I could spontaneously
come up with. So, for a new brand, I definitely want to be part of the spontaneous brand awareness.
Right.
And if I become TOMA for few people, I'll be very happy. But over a period of time, all the market leader brands want to have their spontaneous brand awareness and top of mind awareness at almost the same level. So a Cadbury Dairy Milk would want that amongst all the people that can think about me, know about me, I should be the first brand that they should talk about.
Right.
They want almost 100% synonymity with the word chocolate.
Right. That's marketing nirvana, right? The brand ends up defining the entire category for the consumer.
Correct. So that's what brands aim for. So from a brand salience point of view, we spoke about top of mind awareness. We spoke about Spont brand. The third thing that we will speak about is aided brand awareness. So suppose your brand, now this is Sharon's Denim. Now I will show you logos of different brands, including Sharon's Denim. And I'll ask you which one of these do you remember or you can recognize.
Right.
If you put your finger on saying, yeah, Sharon's Denim I can recognize. So therefore, Sharon's Denim was not a part of TOMA. It was not a part of spontaneous brand awareness. It was, however, a part of aided brand awareness.
Right. Got it.
Now, if you have a brand, you advertised it, and you were not able to be a part of TOMA or Spont brand or aided brand, then only God can help you.
You're listening to GOB, Conversations on the Business of Brands. Your hosts are Sudeep Chawla, marketing practitioner, business leader, and educator to advertising and marketing professionals, and Sharavana Raghavan of Vitril Innovations, consultants to consumer-facing brands and businesses. For more information, go to gobcast.net. If you find this podcast helpful, please help us by telling your friends and rating us.
Second box is slightly simpler.
Mind measures.
Now, first box was the major box where most of your technical measures, etc. exist. The next two boxes are fairly simple. And so therefore, if you want to keep your pen and pencil down, you can. But the second one, clearly, as I said earlier, mind measure is about mental association.
Right.
Yeah, against some specific attributes. Now, this is where I want to draw everybody's attention to two aspects. First aspect is about category attributes. Yeah. Second aspect is about brand attributes. What do I mean by category attributes? For example, let's look at soft drink category. Now, Pepsi has deliberately tried to advertise, innovate in a manner such that it positioned itself as a soft drink for youngsters. So therefore, whenever Pepsi is testing for its mind measures, what all will it test for? To have a right to play in this segment, it needs to have at least passing score or score which is at par with the other competitors on some of the category attributes. For example, it quenches thirst. That's the rule of the category. If you don't quench thirst, you don't get counted. So therefore, it will definitely test whether I still quench thirst or not. Yeah, and you should test for it, because over a period of time, your competitors might redefine the category, their formulations might change, etc., etc. And hence, it is always good to keep testing yourself on category attributes. So, category attributes performance give you the right to play.
Basically, your table stakes. Are you having the entry barrier? Are you meeting the entry requirements into the category?
Correct. So, if you're a chocolate brand, you have to be a good tasting chocolate brand.
Right.
Yeah, you might be a healthy chocolate or whatever you are. If you don't taste good, unfortunately, you will not be able to play in that space. The second part was the brand attribution or the brand attribute. So, therefore, for Pepsi, they will want to check which brand do you associate with these words is a brand for youngsters like me. And then they will list down all sorts of brands: Coke, Pepsi, Dew, Thumbs Up, etc., etc. And then they will see how many people tick on Pepsi. Yeah, this is where you want to be differentiated. You want to have higher endorsements as compared to your competition. In your category attribute, you can be at par with your competition. In your branded attribute, you want to be distinguished from your competition.
Got it.
If you're not, then there is a problem. Either you've not chosen the right attribute, or you've not been able to distinguish yourself on that attribute. So, for example, I'm reminded of this campaign, Men Will Be Men.
Yes.
Yeah, very interesting campaign, very long running campaign. Yeah, it's a campaign which is quite endearing for a lot of people, and a lot of those people might not be consuming that brand also.
True.
It is Seagram's campaign.
Yes.
Yeah, but the execution is quite lovely. Now, when I think about it, and the reason I bring this up is it's a campaign which does not show any product.
Yes.
Yeah. So therefore, that is why I wanted to push the envelope and say, now, if these guys are testing, well, what will they test it on? Yeah. Now, it's a long running campaign. It's not an awareness campaign for sure.
Right.
It's a mind measure led campaign. Yeah. So therefore, what is the mind measure they might be testing for? Yeah. So therefore, it will say it is definitely not a drink for youngsters again. The kind of people that they show, the kind of, situations they portray, it is for sure a drink for middle-aged men. They would be testing on mind measure and endorsements against this statement, which says it is for men like me.
Basically, middle-aged men who want to be boys again.
Yeah, middle-aged married men. Yeah, who take liberties with both their age as well as their marriage.
Right. It's a lovely campaign.
It is, and therefore I wanted to bring it up. But mind measure is slightly simpler, but you need to choose the right attributes against which you want to take endorsements from your consumers.
Right. It basically depends on the positioning you're going for and to check if you're fitting into the positioning with the execution.
Yeah. And in fact, if you're fearful that you're going for a certain positioning, but you might end up on the other side, please check the other side also. There's no harm in doing so. Now that you're going to the consumer, might as well check it. Now the third box, now we are going to behavior.
Okay.
Behavior again is simpler one. Yeah. So in behavior, now that the consumer, you've created some kind of a recall, or you have given some kind of association to consumer, what do you want the consumer to do? You would want consumer to go and buy. Now before the act of buying exists something else which is called the intention to purchase. So you check with them. So next time, for example, you are again the denim brand and you're speaking to, teenagers who, are possibly your target segment. You'll go and ask them, next time you go to the market, and you want to buy a denim, which denim are you likely to buy? And if they name your brand, again, this is a idiot question, so you write all the brands there. If they name your brand, then you know there is an ITP or an intention to purchase. Intention to purchase ideally should lead to purchase, which means that it should translate into sales, which means that it should translate into what is usually termed as market share. Depends on your category, whether you're looking at volume market share or value market share, but ideally it should roughly translate into your market share. Now, if your intention to purchase is high, but your delivered market share after some time is low, which means that there is some kind of a friction between the intent and the final action. And that friction could either be availability of your product. You might find that you are not even available. People are going with the intent, they are not able to find you.
Right.
Or there is some friction in the purchase process.
It could be price, or it could be anything.
Yeah, price, could be your channel, could be your website, could be your landing page, could be your navigation,
your
anything.
payment gateway.
Payment gateway, anything. Yeah. Or your competitor is doing excellent bottom of the funnel marketing.
Right. And luring away the consumers who intend to even purchase you.
Correct. Luring away the consumers who are possibly added you in their basket. If you study these in consonance with each other, it will give you an excellent reading of what possibly is going on and what to correct for. Another measure, Sharon, that we usually talk about in a behavior sense, you measure what is called as operational share, and in short it is called op share. Now, op share is where you ask the person, last time you went to the market, which brand of denim did you buy?
You go beyond intention to check what did you do the last time.
Correct. Now they might say, okay, I bought Sharon's denim, etc. So you see how many people, what percentage of endorsement is Sharon's denim getting, and what is the market share. So now you have, over a period of time, you have intention to purchase, you have market share, and you have operational share. And then you should be able to compare all of these and see where does your gap lie. And that is how you start making meaningful conclusions. If you've understood these measures, you will be able to read them alongside other data that you might have, which is your CAC, your CTR, your CPL, etc., and your market share and your sales. And therefore, you should be able to make meaningful conclusions as to what part of my marketing is working, what part of my marketing needs a tweak. And, in your further executions, in your further funnel creation, you will be able to create significantly better results.
This all makes a lot of sense, Sudeep. And I think you've taken a lot of liberty in creating and abusing Sharon's genes today. But I'm going to push you back on your most creative creation. Can you explain this in the context of your healthy chocolate concept?
Oh, yes. That same example comes back to haunt me.
Yes.
Okay. So let me recall. We created healthy chocolate. We said that we will sell it in multi-packs.
Yes. NCCS A women in metros.
NCCS A women. Yes, correct.
And portion control, etc., etc. So that was our zone. Okay, excellent. So suppose, Sharon, we are launching it. It's a new launch. Now my route to sales is salience to behavior. Right.
So I launch my campaign, and therefore I straight away get into ad awareness or ad salience or campaign salience and brand salience measures. So campaign salience measures I will check for executional cut through and branded cut through. I will check for creative reach, branded creative reach, amongst people who don't recall me spontaneously. Then basis that, I will also check for branded awareness, which is my TOMA and my spontaneous brand awareness. And then I will also check for aided brand awareness.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I've looked through all of these, I will definitely know to what extent has my brand registered. Yeah. And number 2, whether my campaign has done the job of registering it or not, whether my execution has registered or not, whether people remember what brand was this execution for.
Right.
And for example, Sharon, I've worked with celebrity for a fairly long time, and one of the biggest celebrity that India has ever seen, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. I can tell you that most of the brands struggle in terms of BCR or BCT, which is your branded part, in celebrity advertising, a lot of the people remember Amitabh Bachchan for an
Right.
ad. They might not remember the brand at all. You might remember, there was some hair oil ad that Amitabh Bachchan was a part of. You might not even remember the hair oil. Well, Navratan Cool has been paying crores of rupees, but they might not be gaining unless you use the celebrity very, very well. There are a lot of ads that I see where the celebrity becomes the brand and the brand becomes a subset. So therefore, awareness or salience is the route to my sales.
Okay, so I think I'm going to put the question differently to you. For most new brands, I think this makes sense. I don't see new brands deviating from this framework too much.
Yeah.
What about existing brands, the larger brands? Wouldn't their priorities be different? How would they go about measuring these?
Okay, why don't we take the same example forward? Cut to a couple of years later. The same healthy chocolate brand has been around for some time. It has already penetrated all the digital first consumers. The trials have happened, etc., etc. Now that I've reached that particular level, I have done about 70-80 crores of business. That's my annual run rate, ARR as they call it. Now I want to get to the next level. Now this is where my consumer set, the chosen consumer set, starts to make a difference. Now NCCS A women was our chosen consumer set.
Right.
Now if we have to make a specific difference to that particular consumer set, then I would have to create significant penetration and frequency amongst them. So therefore now my campaign would be crafted in a manner such that I start getting them to claim affinity towards my brand. Yeah. So suppose I launch a campaign where I, picture this, that there is this NCCS A woman who's leading her life, and she's actually, she's the one who is wanting to become a perfect mother, wants to have a perfect career, etc. Everything is perfect, and therefore within that perfection, her small moments of joy are missing.
Right.
And therefore then I present my product as something which is a responsible consumption product, which gives her small moments of joy without necessarily destroying her diet or her dietary control.
Right.
Yeah. So that is something that I go with. Now, with this kind of a campaign, Sharan, I'm clear my route to sales is via mind measure and then behavior. Yeah, salience is already done. Now, of course, when I'm doing this, salience will get created. If I'm going to those people, if I have the time, etc., I might as well measure the salience. But what is critical for me is mind measure. So therefore, what do I measure with them? I measure mental association on the attribute. Is a chocolate brand for women like me.
It's when you're talking to NCCSA women, you want them to say, this is the chocolate for me.
Yes. So I will say, how many of the following brands do you associate with this statement? This is a chocolate brand for women like me. And then I'll list down all the brands.
Right.
And I'll hope that I will get the best endorsements amongst all of them.
Got it.
Yeah. And then I'll go to the behavior measure. And because I've been around for some time, I will definitely check for intention to purchase, ITP. But I will also check for operational share.
Right. Because you've been around, maybe they bought it the last time.
Correct. And that also, so your operational share tells me what is their claimed purchase last time around.
Right.
Yeah, if their ITP, intention to purchase, is higher than their claimed purchase, which means that the campaign seems to have done something.
Right.
And hopefully it will result into some kind of a market share gain.
Wow. That's awesome, Sudeep. I think it's been a pretty pithy episode today. So we talked about salience. We talked about salience being of two types, which is for campaign and for the brand. Then we spoke about mind measures and behavioral inputs. Now, you then broke that out into say when you should focus on each of these and what they mean for the brand. And you also covered how it would be for a new brand versus an existing brand, how these priorities might change. Something tells me there's more to this topic.
Yeah, that actually, there's lots more. I think we can do one more episode.
Wow. I think I look forward to that episode as well. But this itself has been extremely informative and I'm sure very useful for the audience. So thank you so much for that, Sudeep.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you for listening to COB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharavana Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net. That's COBBCAST.net.